Hello friends! Continuing our training videos on the LS brand G100 inverter, today we want to talk about another feature of the G100 inverter. The feature we're going to discuss and learn about today is the speed command loss feature. What does this feature mean and what is it actually used for? When you set your frequency reference, break time equals 0.5s// in the G100 inverter, either through analog current or voltage input signals, you are precisely determining the inverter's speed. If a break or interruption occurs in your analog current or voltage input wire, and your frequency reference signal is disconnected or lost for any reason, the system may not function as intended. Based on the settings you've configured in the inverter will detect this disconnection and it will activate the speed command loss feature for you, warning you that your speed or frequency reference is now lost. This indicates that the system is no longer able to detect the intended speed or frequency input, and as a result, you must take appropriate action in this situation to ensure safe and reliable operation. Please be aware of this condition and respond accordingly to maintain the safety and reliability of the system. But what parameters do you need to set for this feature? To activate the speed command loss feature, you need to go into the P or parameter group, specifically P or 12. This parameter has several modes. The first option is 0, which essentially disables this feature. The first active option, option 1, is free run. This means if a speed command loss error occurs, the inverter will set the output to free run. The second option is DEC. Based on the time you've set in parameter PR07, the trip deceleration time, the inverter will stop your electric motor according to this duration. But the third option is hold input. The inverter carefully measures the average speed, which is the input value. Over 10 seconds, break time equals 0.5s// and utilizes that as the speed reference. The next option is hold output. This time, instead of calculating the average input over 10 seconds, it calculates the average output speed over 10 seconds and uses that as the speed reference. The fifth option is lost preset. If you select this option, you must specify in parameter PR14 what frequency the inverter should operate at when a lost command error occurs. The next parameter we need to set is PR13, where we must define the time. Here, we set the inverter so that you can adjust it from 3 or 4 seconds up to 120 seconds. If our frequency reference is disconnected, the inverter will issue a command loss error. But the next important parameter is parameter PR15. This parameter has two options: half of the analog input, the first point of the analog input, or exactly the first point of the analog input itself. In the analog inputs, you would specify 2 points in the inverter. Lower limit, upper limit. For example, you'd say at 4 milliamps, my frequency should be 0, and at 20 milliamps, my frequency should be 50. If you set it to option 0, which means half of the first point, for milliamps becomes half, 2 milliamps. When the inverter detects that your analog input has dropped below 2 milliamps, it issues a speed command loss error. But its second option is exactly the first point of the analog input itself, which is 4 milliamps, depending on the setting you've made. Now, in some places, they might consider this 4 milliamps as 6 milliamps or 8 milliamps, depending on that first point you set. For example, if I've considered X1 to be 4 milliamps and I set it to the second option, as soon as my current analog input drops below 4 milliamps, the inverter issues a speed command loss error. We can also use the inverter's relays to understand that a speed command loss error has occurred. To do this, if we want to consider relay 1, LU31, and if we want to consider relay 2, LU33, we must set the value of these parameters to 13 so that if a speed command loss error occurs, our output relay will operate. In this educational example, we want to use the inverter's relays as well. Let's set LU31 to 13, which means relay 1. It should activate as soon as a lost command error occurs and turn on our signal light. Let's go and apply all the settings we learned about the speed command loss feature to the inverter. and test this feature together. Well, for the G100 inverter, we said that if we want to activate the lost command feature, we must enter the P, our parameter group, and P, our 12. If we set it to 0, it's disabled. If we set it to 1, it free runs. 2, it decelerates, and the other options mentioned in the video. I'll set it to option 1 now, meaning as soon as the lost command error occurs, the inverter will free run the output. In PR13, I'll set the time. For example, wait 3 seconds and then issue the lost command. I don't need PR14. In PR15, I'll set it to option 1, meaning as soon as my analog input drops below 4 milliamps, the first point of my analog input drops. 3 seconds later, the inverter will issue the speed command lost error and free run the output. I'll confirm it. But as we said, if we want to define one of the inverter's relays as command lost, we must enter parameter OU31, relay 1, and set it to 13. If the speed command lost error occurs, the inverter activates its relay output, and now this signal light turns on. Okay, I'll start the inverter now. You see my analog input is 4 milliamps. Now I'll increase it. It's 7 milliamps. If my analog input decreases and drops below 4 milliamps, 3 seconds later, the inverter issues the speed command lost error and free runs the output. Now my analog input dropped below 4 milliamps. 3 seconds later, the inverter issued the lost command, my relay activated, and my signal light turned on. I'll increase it again. As soon as it increases my lost command, error disappears and my signal light turns off. Also, as we said, if our analog input wire is cut along the way, the inverter detects it and issues a lost command error. I'll now disconnect the input wire for analog input I2, which is for the 4 to 20 milliamp input. After I disconnect it, 3 seconds later, you see that the lost command error occurred, my relay output activated, and the inverter free ran its output. So we learned what settings we need to adjust in the inverter to enable the speed command lost feature in the G100 inverter.